According to the 2018 Transamerica Retirement Survey, 44% of Americans fear either a reduction or the complete elimination of Social Security. Are they right to fear this outcome in the coming years? That's one question I'll try to answer in this video. Before we can address that though, I'll need to explain what exactly Social Security is. The basic concept is that you pay taxes to Social Security throughout your working life, and then when you reach old age, the government sends you a monthly check until you die. Because of the simplified understanding most people have, there is a common misconception that needs to be understood in order to see what's going to happen in the next few years. Many Americans think that Social Security works essentially as a savings account, but in reality, it's a pay-as-you-go system. Instead of saving your Social Security tax contribution in an individual account, the Social Security Administration dispenses its tax revenue to the beneficiaries as it receives the money. One reason that the system runs in this manner lies in its inception. In 1935, President Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act in an effort to fight poverty among the elderly, the unemployed, and children. Now, seeing that these groups were in no position to contribute to retirement savings accounts, Social Security had to be established as a pay-as-you-go system. This also means that any reform to the system could not feasibly move away from the pay-as-you-go model without depriving an entire generation who paid into the system of their benefits. Now that we've covered the basic concepts of Social Security, it's time to look at why it might undergo some changes in the coming years and decades. Because it's a pay-as-you-go system, Social Security relies on having a certain ratio of workers to beneficiaries. From 1974 to 2008, this ratio remained stable at about 3.3 workers per beneficiary. Since then, the ratio has fallen to 2.8 workers per beneficiary in 2017. It is projected to continue falling, although not as dramatically after it falls to 2.2 workers per beneficiary in 2035. The reason for this historic decline is the mass retirement of the baby boomer generation. Now at this point you may be asking, why didn't the government do something to plan for this years ago? Well, the answer is that they did. Sort of. In 1983, foreseeing the burden that the decreasing population growth rate would put on the Social Security system, legislators decided to increase the Social Security tax contribution while also implementing a tax on Social Security benefits targeted at beneficiaries who had other sufficient sources of income. With the surplus that was created through these changes, they created the Social Security trust funds in which surplus tax revenues were to be invested in U.S. Treasury securities. These Treasury securities could then be redeemed when the baby boomer generation caused stress on the system. In addition, the Treasury securities generate interest, which, although small, has helped bolster the Social Security system. Since its inception, the trust funds have bought $2.9 trillion in U.S. Treasury securities. The Social Security trust funds are expected to begin cashing in their Treasury securities in 2020. After then, the trust funds are expected to be depleted by 2034. What this means is that Social Security will have to go back to relying solely on its tax revenues to provide benefits. This will result in a predicted 21% cut in benefits after 2034. Seeing as many Americans rely on Social Security for their retirement, this will have massive ramifications on poverty rates and quality of life. This is of course if policymakers don't address the system by then. One thing is certain though, the Social Security system, while it may weaken, will not completely disappear. Unfortunately, there is a major flaw in the Social Security trust funds. In essence, those policymakers in 1983 just shifted the burden to a later generation. The trust funds buying U.S. Treasury securities is essentially the government writing itself a currently $2.9 trillion IOU. Once the Social Security Administration begins to regularly cash in those Treasury securities, the government will have to find some way to generate that money. This could mean issuing more Treasury bonds, increasing tax rates, printing more money, cutting other spending, or even prematurely cutting Social Security benefits. The most likely outcome is a combination of multiple methods to make a more palatable package. Seeing the inevitable depletion of the trust funds, some legislators and economists are calling for a switch from investing in Treasury securities to investing in the stock market. There's some merit to this argument. For instance, the return on investment would be substantially higher in the stock market than in low-risk security bonds. However, the negatives far outweigh the positives. Firstly, it doesn't solve the problem that the government will have to find some way to finance the redeeming of large amounts of Treasury securities. In addition, it is not a good idea to either directly or indirectly give the government control of companies. It could lead to the government showing preferential treatment to companies that it is invested in, along with a myriad of other issues. A similar solution that many free market economists support is shifting the system to allowing the individual taxpayers to determine where to invest a portion of their Social Security payroll taxes in the stock market. While this option does give taxpayers the agency to maximize their returns while keeping the government out of the stock market, it does have flaws as well. For example, the plan relies heavily on the financial literacy of its taxpayer participants. In a 2012 Gallup poll, only 53% of respondents said that they had money invested in the stock market. Unless this plan comes along with some sort of financial education program, it is unlikely to be able to benefit a large section of Americans. While I can't fully support this last proposed solution, it does hit on a crucial point. It's imperative that Americans take agency in their own future financial security. President Franklin D. Roosevelt is said to have originated the concept of the three-legged stool of retirement planning. These three legs were employer pensions, employee savings, and Social Security. The stool could not be reliable to stand if one of the legs was missing. With the decreased prevalence of employer pensions and the imminent weakening of Social Security, Americans must take it upon themselves to bolster their personal savings through early and frequent investments if they hope to sustain the status quo. I hope this video has been informative, and thank you for watching.